To close us out for this week, blow out the candle. Zero Trust just had its 15th birthday. The headline here is Zero Trust is 15 years old. Why full adoption is worth the struggle. So let's talk about the struggle. Zero Trust, of course, being that idea, not necessarily don't ever trust anyone for anything ever, but rather that trust shouldn't be inherited and should be evaluated and reevaluated as conditions change. There's some good comments in these articles from Suresh Katakam. Zero Trust is most effective when deployed with modern cloud-native enterprise architectures that are intentionally designed to enforce security at every layer of the infrastructure. There's a extended analogy made by John Kindervag, who wrote the original paper on Zero Trust while at Forrester, about if you see somebody in the living room watching TV that you've never seen before, you wouldn't assume that they're okay to be there because they just are. And so we shouldn't take the same approach to strategy. I think that there's been some good resources provided. Recent example being the implementation guide that NIST released that gave some kind of concrete examples of environments set up with different approaches to accomplishing that zero trust goal. But there's also been some factors that have worked against its adoption. And I think one of the ones that you have to touch on is its buzzwordification. It was the next big thing for a while, and it was being used as basically a product name or a SKU versus a methodology that can be applied, in a number of ways within the environment. So I think, we're seeing that there are benefits from adopting a zero trust strategy when its ethos is followed and done consistently across an environment, but it's an uphill struggle. So, what comes next? Can this be reclaimed and those wins be touted as evidence that this is something worth taking a second look at and investing in? Or do we just need to new Coke it and just come up with a new name for the same kind of approach where zero trust is kind of an extension of traditional best practices to accommodate expanding environment moving past the perimeter? What do you think? What can we reclaim zero trust, or should we take the lessons of zero trust and try and give it a fresh coat of paint?
Yeah, I do like the new Coke idea. We could call it totally sus or something like that.
Yes, perfect.
New buzzword. So first off, congrats on the 15-year anniversary. I think there's a lot of wins, and they talk about it in the article too. Getting every organization to fully comply and implement the spirit of the framework and the general nature of it too is hard. But companies have been moving, I think, in large respect, in the right direction, right? I think that there's still a perceived cost with it, both in terms of security getting in the way, because you're supposed to just implicitly deny everybody, and they have to prove that you are someone to be trusted inside of the organization. And having that, again, with that layered approach, there are different tools that you can use to get that done. And I think that people just start thinking about that and probably get a little bit overwhelmed. And I think that's totally fair. It is overwhelming, especially if you're in a large, complex environment, or even if you're in a small environment and you are an IT person and you've heard of zero trust, but you haven't actually looked into it. Like the NIST guide is a great resource. There are tons of wonderful other resources too, from many, many different organizations. Also, for any gamers out there, remember Reach. Reach was also 15 years ago, and my knees didn't hurt. So I'm probably dating myself a little bit on that one. But yeah, I mean, I don't think that we need to rebrand Zero Trust. I think Zero Trust is and has just become something that has entered into the zeitgeist of our best practices. I think it just goes by several different names. Mm-hmm. There's something to be said, though, in terms of like a retrospective on the industry, particularly on the vendor side of like how we leverage buzzwords and how we market things.
Absolutely.
So maybe there's something that we can do to be a little bit more responsible in that. And I think generally we've been doing a good, or at least I thought we were doing a good job until AI came out, and then that
Right.
kind of made me also take pause. But yeah, if you're not already adopting at least some of the principles from Zero Trust, I think that you really should reconsider.